Hello, friends. Welcome to my program, Colonel's Punch. Today, in part 2 of the presentation of Russian Ukraine War 2022, I'll present the Eastern and Southern fronts. Was always on fire. For the last 8 years since 2014, over 14,000 fighters have been killed on both sides. Now, this region, the southern region, is called the Dombas, which has got Lushansk and Donetsk. The Russian separatists had grabbed about 6,500 kilometers, that is roughly one-third the area they claim. On 21st February 2022, in a sudden announcement, President Putin gave independence to both Lushansk and Donetsk, and the battle played out. It was very clear to the Russian strategy that they had to advance towards Mariupol in the Donetsk area. That will open a land corridor. Now, in the very first offensive, they had a large force, two CA armies, that means about two motorized divisions and a brigade of armor each, plus lot of militia, which includes the Sparta battalion. Now, on the Ukrainian front, it was a very heavy. They had about a lakh of militias, well entrenched, with about a mechanized brigade and a mechanized brigade in reserve. They had 15,000 fighters, which, President Putin used to say, neo-Nexist. Now, it was very clear from the front that the Russian strategy will be to go and push towards Mariupol, so that Mariupol is captured and the land corridor is clear to Crimea. So the very first battle was in Lushansk, where about 4 villages were captured. But as I was telling you, this is an eyeball-to-eyeball war, and it is 420 kilometers of frontage in the Donbas region, where every inch of land is occupied. So initially, a very heavy artillery, rockets and barrage were fired, and 4 villages in Lushansk area were captured. And the Ukrainians fought back and captured it, recaptured it. Now, with that as a frontal attack, the Russians now moved towards Starbolik. It was on 25th Feb. After heavy barrage, they crossed over with about a column of 60 mechanized vehicles. They met with direct fire. They was hell to lose, and they lost about 28 tanks and mechanized vehicles, and they had to get back. Now the next time they went with a heavier artillery barrage, and they were able to clear it. But this time the force level was much higher, and they again lost about 30 armored vehicles. At the same time, Pavlovil was a small village was invested and captured. The Ukrainians fought back. But the main battle was fought at Volnovakha. Now, Volnovakha is just 70 kilometers from Mariupol. It's a gateway to Mariupol. Now, here the fight was really fierce, and that famous battalion Sparta was in action. The Sparta legendary commander Vladimir Voga was in the front line, and he was killed. A Russian hero. He was immediately awarded the Lenin Award by President Putin. Now that really was a fierce battle, and in that battle even a Ukrainian naval commander was killed. Sukhoi and armed helicopters were shot down. The Ukrainians had all that man-pad, that is the Javelin anti-tank missiles and the Stingers, and they had experts. But in this battle, after the death of Commander Joa, the Russians were fierce and they cleared it and they started moving towards Mariupol. In between, Advika, which was captured in 2014-15 and recaptured by the Ukrainians, was again invested and cleared. The Russians on the southern front were now in full control. They had occupied 93% of Lushansk and about 53% of Donetsk. So, at this level, war had been fought, and it has taken more than a month to reach this point. From here, we'll get on to the southern front. The southern front of the Ukraine-Russia war was the most important because strategically the ports and the control of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov was taking place. And the important Mariupol port capture will open up a land route to Dombas region. So in fact, a full corridor to Dombas will open up. Now, this was where the Russian Black Fleet Navy was in full action. 10 tank landing ships disembarked more than 200 tanks and about 200 AFVs on the shore of Azov and Black Sea, covering over 70 kilometers. It was a big landing. In that battle, they had first bonded all these ports and then landed their troops and the armed car. Now, the first action that took place was to take control of the North Crimea Canal. Now, this was the water source for Crimea, and it was very important. So that was cleared. The naval commanders captured a very small island called the Snake Island, and the laboratory there of the Ukrainian was smashed into pieces. Now with this, two small actions, the war started. The most important was Mariupol, as I said, that its capture will open up the land route or the land corridor to Donbas. Now, It was the most important port, and it had a population of 4.5 lakhs. It was a beautiful city indeed. In 2014-15, it was captured by Russia, but Ukrainians, Azov battalion, that neo-Nazi battalion, fought back and they were in position. So it was very important to capture this. So on 26th February, the siege to Mariupol took place. There was heavy fighting going on all over there, from the south and from the east. By 15 March, Mariupol, a huge place, was totally surrounded. Now, Mariupol had enough Ukrainian troops. It had the Azov battalion, it had got a brigade and a battalion of naval infantry. So it was thickly packed. And finally, the Chechens also arrived for the Russians to fight. By 15 March, nearly 40% of Mariupol was bombarded and destroyed. Now, the Russian troops, especially tanks, were firing directly into the buildings because each building had become a bunker, very strongly held, and they were fighting to the end. Heavy bombardment. Even the theatre was hit, and over 300 people were killed. The entire Mariupol city was burning. Out of the 4,50,000 citizens, there was a humanitarian crisis, and over 3 lakh moved out into safety under fire. Imagine children, mothers running for safety. The war continued, and by about 27 March, 27 March, after 40 days of fighting, Russia demanded a complete surrender. 90% of Mariupol was in flames, but that fight continued. The Azov battalion was totally smashed. Its headquarters were torn apart, and its buildings in ruins. The fight continued there, and Mariupol is still fighting. Now, coming down to the others fronts, 21 Army Group went straight to Zaporizhzhia, that famous nuclear site, having 6 nuclear plants producing almost 6,000 kilowatts. There was a fight in that area, and it was also put on fire, but quickly this place was occupied by the Russians. So Russians had Chernobyl and now Zaporizhzhia, and they wanted a third nuclear site also that was near Mykolaiv. So the action would be there also. Now, Kherson was the first city which the Russians captured. It was a great day for Russia because Kyiv, nothing happened. Sumy, nothing happened. Kharkiv, nothing happened. And now they get hold of Kherson. Kherson attacked and then re-attacked. Over 150 armored vehicles lie there in ruins. The Kherson mayor said nothing is left here. The battle shifted to Mykolaiv. No, that was a port city, beautiful. What the Ukrainians did, you'll never forget. They scuttled the only frigate, Hitman, and into the sea. So the only Ukrainian flagship in the Black Sea was just scuttled. But they hit back very strongly, and 3 of the landing ships of the Russians were hit. The battle was too strong. The Russians then set their eyes on Odessa. Odessa till now has been bombarded, and Maklov had been retaken. Kherson was re-attacked, and the battle goes on. It's simmering. In Mariupol, over 5,000 civilians have been butchered. Here enters the Chechenian forces in the 3rd week of March, and they, under their 2 top commanders, Ramzan, were right in the center of the Mariupol city. They're butchering people, they're firing, they're very aggressive. So, the Chechenian chief also arrived, and the war is now coming to a near end in Mariupol. 5,000 people butchered, 3.5 lakh people had gone as refugees. Over 3,000 people died. Imagine what is happening in Russia after the Southern Front. Over 20 to 40,000 soldiers have died. Civilians, estimated at 10,000 to 25,000 of civilians have perished. 5 million civilians have taken refuge in the neighboring countries. The war is still on. Ukraine is counterattacking in all places, in Kyiv, in Sumy, in Kharkiv, in Dombas, and they have occupied fair amount, or retaken fair amount of the troops of the area. What they see is hundreds of civilians killed and lying on the road. Civilians have fought to the last round. This is the battle of Ukraine, and we have to draw lessons from it.